At InDigital, we know the public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only I3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
August 24th, 2016, the I Am 901 movement is born. One of my personal stories set the tone for this movement. What started out as a way to raise awareness for the reclassification issue for dispatchers quickly turned into peer support. 911 professionals from all over the world were sharing their stories. On Facebook alone, at that time, the engagements were over 34 million. It spawned a peer support session at conferences called Imagine Listening, where dispatchers shared their stories out loud or on paper. For years, I have been asked if this would ever become a book, coming June 2023, and available now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. From Titletown Publishing, Imagine Listening, Your Worst Day is Our Everyday. If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned. Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be episode 511 of Within the Trenches, True Stories from the 911 Dispatchers Who Lived Them. This, I'm laughing because this is like take 2 of just this little intro part that I'm doing really quick before the episode starts. So I'm already laughing, but this episode has been sponsored by InDigital, a leader next-gen core services, and a big shout-out, as always, to patrons of the podcast, as well as Facebook subscribers. This episode is an open mic episode. This is from the Imagine Listening session that I did a few weeks ago at the Ohio. It was an APCO NINA joint mini conference. So it was the Ohio mini conference. I was out there for an 8-hour class that I did, and part of that 8-hour class is Imagine Listening. So last week's episode, you heard the very powerful stories from that Imagine Listening session, and now you get the funny part, which is open mic. Now, this is going to be a short episode, actually. I think it's only like 12 minutes or something like that. And the reason is because, and you're going to hear it, and I apologize, but the audio, the way they had the mixer set up and everything, and I even checked the audio settings and stuff, and it was where it was supposed to be, but it was still clipping. And just what that means is the audio was at a very, like, the highest level, so it almost sounds distorted in a few spots, mostly when I speak on there, but everyone else's stories sound perfect. They're fine, but for whatever reason, my mic was and what's nuts though is that when I was on stage and everything through the speaker system, you couldn't hear it. It sounded fine, but in the recording, it picks it up almost as if it's kind of distorted in a way. So I apologize for that. You'll hear a little bit of that here and there. I tried to fix it as much as possible without destroying the audio, but the most important part are the stories from the audience, and all of those stories are in there. So I'm excited for you to listen, and the next few episodes are another Imagine Listening session, and this audio is crystal clear. It's perfect. And the Imagine Listening session and the open mic session that's going to be coming up within the next couple of weeks are from the Mayan Ranch that I was out there for. The 360 degree dispatcher, Joe Serio, who runs the leadership training retreat out at the Mayan Ranch in Bandera, Texas, and I do the closing part. And I had my own microphone system that I used, so the audio came out good. I'm going to be at the Indiana conference coming up soon, and I'll be doing Imagine Listening out there. So these are going to be back-to-back-to-back Imagine Listening sessions, but I'll also be recording episodes there as well with individuals to capture their stories. But these are all like short stories that people are sharing and very powerful and important and need to be out there. And for those of you to hear and to learn more about what 911 professionals do on a daily basis. So this one coming up is the lighter side of dispatch. Again, this is from, from Open Mic. And this was recorded in Ohio. Now, really quick before we go into this, one of the things that's odd is some of the audio that was recorded. I don't even know who it is. It's like gibberish in some spots, and I wasn't talking on the mic, and the other microphone wasn't being used either. So it's pretty odd. It's very odd listening to it because you couldn't hear the audio that's picked up, like the gibberish that I'm talking about. I've heard it was like a male voice and a female voice, and or I don't know. It's a voice of some sort, and it's gibberish. It's like really fast. Now, I took all of those pieces out, of course, but there were some spots, and it never went over the speaker system. It was just recorded within the audio. So I don't know where it came from. That was pretty freaky. I need to ask my Ohio friends if that hotel was haunted. I don't know. We were in the ballroom, so I don't know. It was weird. But either way, without further ado, here is episode 511 of Within the Trenches, True Stories of the 911 Dispatchers Who Lived Them. And it's the open mic portion of the Imagine Listening session that was done out in Ohio for the mini conference. Enjoy.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Dispatch.
There is no one over here to cook our lunch. We are waiting for our lunch, and there's no one here to cook our lunch.
All right, calm down. Where are you at?
The group home. Now, what are you going to do?
We'll get some help over there for you, okay?
Welcome to Open Mic, where we visit the lighter side of dispatch, because laughing is good medicine.
All right. Here we're at for Open Mic, and this is going to be titled Within the Trenches podcast, but I am here with a live audience for the 2023 Ohio Mini Conference. All right, we just did Imagine Listening, and now it's time for the lighter side of dispatch. And again, it only takes one story for all of them to go downhill, and that intro that you heard is a real call. That is a real call. I just cut it up and turned it into an intro that came from a good friend out of Indiana, and I'll leave it there. But that was a real call. So, does anyone have a story they would like to share?
So when I just started dispatching, whenever we'd get the returns for the plates, I somewhat panicked a little bit, still seeing the abbreviations. And one particular night, it was quite hectic, and they were doing traffic stop after traffic stop, trying to get me out of training, to get used to the volume. And when I got a return for one of the vehicles, I read it really fast, and sure enough, I got to, 1997 white, I was supposed to say Volvo, but Volva. came out very clearly and confidently because I was trying to fake my way through it.
Clearly and confidently.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I saw so many mic clicks immediately after that, and my trainer looked at me and was completely white-faced, and I was like, oh, the FCC is coming for me, aren't they? Which apparently is not a genuine threat in the long term. Now I know this, but yeah, that was my very proud moment at the end of my training.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing.
Where the agency I work for, you are not allowed to park a vehicle unattended. It's a very big security risk. And we have a security team, a third-party contract security team that will go and confirm that all the vehicles are attended and that they're doing what they're supposed to be. And one of our very wonderful security guards marks on the radio that he has a Honda Cervix that is unattended and needs immediate attention. And the pause in the entire dispatch center, we all just look at each other and go, did he say what we just thought he said? And sure enough, he gets right back on the radio and goes, never mind, the Cervix driver is back. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. You know, I shared in last night when we were at dinner. This is not my story, but this is one for one of the very first open mics that I did. It was at the Indiana conference. And the guy stands up, grabs the microphone, he goes, so this was early on when I was dispatching, and they had pulled over a black Kawasaki. He goes, but I didn't know that that's what it was at first. All I saw was the kind of vehicle it was, or like the make or whatever, and it had 4 letters on it. And it was KW, like AK or something like that. And I remember when I was reading it, I thought, I don't know what this is. He goes, I didn't know it was a Kawasaki at the time. So when I gave it back, I was like, I guess I'm just going to read it the way it says here. He gets back on the radio and he goes, central to, whatever officer, he'll come back in a 1991 Black Hawk. Is what it is.
So shortly after we started dispatching for EMS, we have a gas company called Tennessee Gas. I'm not sure if how many of you guys know that, but I'm not sure if you guys, where they release pressure from the pipes. It's very loud. And it's such an extreme pressure, and there's this nut that is pretty big and pretty thick. They unwind, well, whatever. And it really, all right. So one of the employees from Tennessee called and said, we were just blowing off from the steam from the pipe. I'm imagining this in my head. I know what it sounds like. And they said the nut that we used to release it has flown off, I don't know, I think he said over 500 yards across the yard or wherever they were at and hit the coworker in the knee and busted it immediately. So of course I'm like, oh my God, because I'm imagining that speed and how they said it was just literally broken too, this flipping. And so when I dispatched out EMS, I still had this visual of what they told me. And I told them I needed them to respond to a busted nut.
It's funny that notification went off right as you said it, almost as to cover it. Perfect. We did not plan that, but it worked. So well done. Yeah.
Okay, so as most dispatchers, we all have back problems from sitting in chairs all day long. So one morning I came to work, my back was killing me and I felt like it just needed cracked. So I had asked, my coworker offered, do you want me to crack your back? I'm like, sure. 7 a.m. We have like little round tables and I'm like bent over. She's straddling me, trying to like push on my back. Meanwhile, my headset was in my pocket and I'm telling her like, go up a little bit higher, push harder. It's going over the radio while all the guys are in roll call. Nobody keys up and tells me I have an open mic. All of a sudden,
of course not.
Yes, and it went on for like a good minute after listening to the playback. It sounds so bad. But one of the guys keys up and goes, need a little help radio. And still I had no idea that I had an open mic. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what did they just hear? And so I wasn't a supervisor at the time. I had my supervisor pull up the recording, and it's really raunchy. It said, what were you doing? Someone called in and they were like, what were you just doing? Like, it sounded like you were having sex over the radio. Yeah, I have a photo and I have the recording. It's comical. If anybody wants to hear it just to laugh later, let me know.
Oh, damn, I might have to throw you that then.
It's a good one.
You know, I remember working one night, and I'll say this very quick, that I was always taking this call from this lady who just wanted to talk. Okay, she just wanted to talk to somebody, and for whatever reason, it always seemed like it was me who was getting this phone call. And one night, she fell asleep on me. She's snoring, and God, I wish I had this recording because it's one that I love and I'll always have with me. You know, at that moment when she fell asleep, I thought, there is no way I am ever going to get another chance in real life to do this, so I'm going to do this. So I said to her on the phone, Annie, are you okay? Or if you can't Annie? She didn't understand. She's like, oh, sorry. I fell asleep. I was like, are you okay, Annie? She's like, yeah, so okay.
I don't know about all this. This could ruin the whole mood. A little bit of background. My brother was brutally murdered and dismembered when I was about 9 years old. So I'm dispatching one day, and the guy that did it calls in. He got abuse of a corpse, so it wasn't like anything like that. So anyway, he calls in to report that his television set was stolen. And he's complaining about how expensive they are and all this. And me being who I am, I was like, oh, yeah. I hear they cost an arm and a leg nowadays. And one of the officers was in the hallway, and I look over, and he's just like white with like, I can't believe you just, but yeah, of course. Not going to pass up an opportunity like that.
Oh, shit.
Did not know where that was going.
It's hard to follow that.
It's true.
My background is in patrol for 26 years, and now I'm managing our dispatch center for 5, so I have a great appreciation for the dispatchers, and unlike over here where they say get to work, I know that they need to have some time after those, because on the patrol side we're there seeing what happened. And it was one cold morning in January, and the U-Bay car washes, you go in to spray off your car. There's been a lady who had gone in there to spray off her car. It's pretty cold out. She's out there spraying her car or whatever, but this particular U-Bay, you could close the garage doors. The front door was closed at the end of the story. She had called in that she was trapped inside this car wash and she could not get out. And dispatch work, and we had numerous incidents at the car wash. They had the contact number for the owner. He's like, they made contact with her. Just go up and just kick on the door. It should loosen up. It's frozen. You should be able to open it to get out. And they could hear her in there just kicking and screaming and crying. She's trapped and she can get out. And the gentleman had told the dispatch, tell her to try the back door. And the lady just plain out said, well, that one's open. And you could hear the pause, and I have the pause because dispatch advice, they had the back doors open, and everybody said at the same time, can you back out? But this lady was so frantic with them on the phone, and they were doing everything that they could to get her untrapped. Kicking the door, and as she just says, well, that one's open. So, you can follow that.
Wow. We hear really quick before you wrap this up. I have one last story that I want to share, and then we'll wrap up, and then you can go to lunch. Like these two stories here, the times that I've done open mic, well, there have been moments where someone starts sharing a story, and you can feel it in the room, and you can hear from everyone, like, should we be laughing at this? Like, should we? So real quick, so I brought these stories left, and you can go to your lunch. In Wisconsin, I was doing open mic, And this the dispatcher's telling the story and says this guy calls in and has just started saying, my friend's not breathing, my friend's not breathing. And then the dispatcher goes, can we swear? And I was like, of course you can. Swear, go ahead. And she goes, shit. She goes, okay, I'm going to go into this. So they're doing CPR and stuff. And they're getting me in the recording. People are like, oh, like, should we be laughing at this? And even the staff, I was like, oh man, what did I do? And she goes on and she goes, then the guy says, oh, my baby's not breathing. And she's like, shit, it's a baby who's not breathing. So then we continue going. You can hear people kind of chuckling, but because the person who's telling the story is so animated as they're telling the story, and I'm thinking, where's the funny part? Please. And the person says, an officer ends up beating the ambulance out there. And then the ambulance ends up saying, EMS starts saying, you can sit everyone down. Central, sit everybody down. And the dispatcher who's telling the story, she's like, why? I'm going to slow down. There's a baby that's not breathing. We're doing CPR right now. And then the officer keys up and says, it's an iguana.
All right, there it is. Episode 511 of Within the Trenches podcast. Once again, this was recorded with a live audience out in Ohio for the APCO NENA Joint Ohio Mini Conference. I was out there for that 8-hour class that I did called Keep Broadcasting Your Message, and Imagine Listening is part of it, along with the open mic session and stories like the ones that you just heard. There were chunks that I had to cut out, though. Again, as I mentioned earlier, because of the audio was distorted in some spots, and I don't know what happened or why, but it happened, and I apologize. But you got to hear the stories from the audience, and the one about it costs an arm and a leg. Whoa. There was a part that I cut out, okay? There was a part that I cut out, and it was my response because it was way distorted, so it was hard to even hear it. Some of the spots that you heard that had a little bit of distortion in there, you can at least make out what I'm saying. With this piece that I took out, you could not understand, and so I had to take it out. Basically what it was I was on stage and I was chuckling, and I was saying that I don't even know where to go from there, sir. To the person who had told the story, I said, I don't even know where to go from there. And the person just kind of throws their arms up like, I don't know either. But it was interesting. And I'm pretty sure there's a part that I took out too, where I end up mentioning, there are some times when I'm recording the open mic part and there's a story that's being shared and you're thinking, I don't know where the funny part is. Like, you don't know where to laugh, but you can hear in the audience as well. The audience just is laughing because, the person who's telling the story is like animated, right? And they just are ha ha ha, like a like an awkward laugh. Because you don't know if you should be laughing, and now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if I left this part in or not because it was kind of distorted as well. And if I did, you're just going to hear the story again now, but without the distortion. All I was saying and explaining to the audience is that there have been times where someone is sharing a story, and immediately in my head I'm thinking, I don't know if we should be laughing at this. Like, is this funny? I don't know if this is funny or not. But one of those stories specifically, out of Wisconsin, there was a dispatcher that was sharing a story, and the person was immediately when they start out, they're saying, "Can we swear?" And I said, "Yeah, of course, swear. Just say it the way it was. It's fine. This is an adult show. If people don't like it, they can turn it off." So the person's telling a story. They take a 911 call from this guy who is saying that their friend isn't breathing. So right away, the person telling the story goes, "Oh shit, it's somebody who's not breathing." This is what they're thinking in their head, right? And because they're sharing the story and being so animated, like with their hands and their reactions and stuff, the audience is laughing. But immediately, and I know you're thinking this as you're watching or just listening, you're thinking, it's someone who's not breathing. Why is this even funny? And and you can hear the audience as it's going on, like the chuckling that was loud in the beginning because of the person being so animated is like starting to come down a little bit. And then people are, you could tell the people are probably thinking, should we be laughing at this? Because the person continues going on with the story, and the caller at one point ends up saying, "It's my baby, my baby, my baby's not breathing." And the person telling the story is very animated as they're saying it, and the person's going, "Oh shit, oh fuck. It's a baby. It's a baby that's not breathing." And then in the audience you can hear, "Oh, what?" So the person continues going. So they're doing CPR, right? This whole time. They're doing CPR. An officer gets out there before EMS does. And the officer keys up on the radio and says, Central, slow everyone down. And the dispatcher telling the story is thinking in their head, oh shit, like why? Why would we slow them down? It's a baby that's not breathing. And the officer keys up on the radio again and says, Central, it's an iguana. And then you can hear the audience that, oh, we can laugh now. And they just start laughing and chuckling because not because of the caller. And that's one of the things that I always have to tell people is that when we're doing open mic and we're sharing these funny stories, we're not making fun of anyone. What we're laughing at is the incident. And the situation, rather, the situation that's going on, where this whole time, you're freaking out because you're doing infant CPR, or what you think is infant CPR. And I've done infant CPR before. One, it is not funny. It's one of the scariest things. Not just for me, but of course the person who's going through it. But I'm right there with them, right? I'm right there with them. So I'm going through the CPR with my caller, and in my head, I'm thinking about my own kids. So it's a very traumatic thing to go through. But going through all of that and then to find out it was an iguana the whole time, you can't make that shit up. And if you don't have a little bit of humor, a little bit of dark humor in this profession, the profession is going to eat you up. And that's what I try to explain to people, that it's not um humor or making fun of or anything like that. This is just the situation. This is what happens in 911. So that's why I explain it this way, because there are some calls where in the beginning someone's telling the story and you're thinking, where's the funny part? Get to the funny part, please. And then you get to something like that, and it turns out it's an iguana. But oh man, there was another call where someone was doing CPR and they're going and going and going, and it turned out when they got there, the person was doing CPR on a bird cage. You can't make that up. That happened. That happened. I think that was a story that was shared at the last time I was at the Michigan conference. That was one of the stories that was shared. But oh man, yeah. That's open mic. That's what happens. And like I said before, I want to thank the Ohio Mini Conference, everyone from APCO and NINA, part of that the committee that put the mini conference together. It was awesome. They had their awards and everything. Congratulations to everyone who was nominated, and those who did receive an award. And for those who were there for the 8-hour class, thank you so very much. It was a lot of fun. I look forward to going other places and doing it as well. And if you're interested in that, get a hold of me. You can get a hold of me. Well, I'll mention this stuff here in just a moment. But again, that was open mic. I hope you enjoyed it. I did end the session with my my energy drink. burrito story, but I was listening to it. It was way too distorted, and I was not going to put you through that bullshit. So, you're welcome. For those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that is going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. And you can follow me all over social media. You can also become a patron, a subscriber of the podcast for bonus everything. That is patreon.com/WTT podcast. And then also there's a version of that. It's not as there's not as many perks that you get on Facebook, but still a lot of cool stuff and everything. And that's facebook.com/within the trenches podcast/support. Now, easily to find all of that, if you're watching right now, the bottom of the screen on the left side, and if you're just listening, you're going to hear this anyway. It's links.co/WTT podcast. And once again, that is links with 2 i's.co/WTT podcast. You'll find everything on there: email, social media, the latest episode, where to buy Imagine Listening, the book, where to be a subscriber of the podcast and help support everything that I'm doing. And then also at the very bottom is the link to the store for podcast swag and Dispatch apparel. It is all there. And so you can check it out. This live broadcast has been sponsored by In Digital. And yeah, you can listen 24/7. Actually, you can see all of this on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn Live, and a lot of videos on TikTok as well. And then you can listen to the podcast 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.